When I started telling this story in front of audiences, I realized right away that it was a bit of a challenge for a modern audience. The technology has changed so much that you have to know your audience to tell the story so that everyone understands the humor. It's called My Watch, and it's about, of course, his watch. Well, it was a pocket watch, and you had to wind each watch separately. It was full of gears, and you had to actually wind it up. There were no batteries in these watches, and each watch kept its own separate time. There was no way to coordinate between various watches without going back to the watchmaker. And so I had to do a fair amount of adaptation right at the beginning to explain actually what a pocket watch was so that people would understand. And I tried to do it in a way that integrates seamlessly into the story. So here it is, my adaptation of a story by Mark Twain called My Watch. Back in the day, every watch used to stand on its own time. There weren't any satellites to beam the time down at you from the universe, so the poor watches had to figure out for themselves what time it was, and if they got it wrong, well, they might not even know it until their owner or the watchmaker set them straight. It could take months before a watch got back on track with the rest of the world, and there weren't any diamonds or batteries in them. You had to wind them up, and they were full of springs and wheels and all such like that. They'd wind down, and then you'd have to wind them up again 2 or 3 times every day. And watches knew their place. You had a special pocket in your pants or your vest where the watch lived. You didn't wear them on your wrist or around your neck, and a watch would never hide inside a telephone. If you had a watch that kept good time, it was a thing of beauty. Well, I had a watch like that. It ran perfectly for 18 months, didn't break down or stop or anything like that, and it didn't gain or lose even a minute. Well, one night, I let it run down. That was sort of an omen, a forerunner of calamity. I wound it up and set it best I could figure and took it to the jeweler to set the exact time. He asked if I'd ever had it repaired, and I told him it didn't need to be repaired, just set to the right time. He pried it open, did a little test, and declared it was running slow and needed the regulator sped up. I tried to tell him I was the regulator and I'd fallen down on the job, but this human cabbage wouldn't listen. He set the regulator up and the watch began to gain. It went faster and faster every day. Within a week, its pulse went up to 150 in the shade, and within months, it was 13 days ahead of time. Come Halloween, that watch was already in the first snow of December. It got to the place that it was making me pay monthly house rent every 2 weeks. I couldn't afford that, so I took it to another feller. He said on top of regulating, it needed cleaning and oiling. So we did all that, and the thing slowed down to where everything went by like one of them slow-motion movies. I started missing appointments, then my dinner, then days at a time. A couple of weeks down the road, it was a day behind, and another 2 weeks I was living in the day before yesterday. It got so bad that I'd go down to the museum and get my current news from the mummy. I went to another watchmaker, and he said the case was warped. He'd have to ream it out. Well, after that, the thing averaged the right time, but nothing more. For half a day, it'd go like the devil on fire, and then it'd slow down to the speed of frozen molasses. By the end of the day, it'd be right on time again. So at the end of the day, it did its job, but in the in-between, it wasn't worth much. The next feller told me the king bolt was broken. I had no idea what a king bolt was, but I didn't want to sound ignorant, So I had him fix that. Well, after that, it'd run a while and stop a while, using its own discretion about the intervals. I never knew when it was going to be running and when it was going to be stopped, so I took it to another fellow who told me there was something wrong with the hair trigger. After he fixed that, it'd run fine until 10 minutes to 10, when both the arms would stick together like a pair of scissors, and it was impossible to tell what time it was. Well, one feller unbent the crystal, and another one rewound the mainspring, and yet another one said half the works needed resoling, whatever that was. Finally, they got the thing to working all right, except every 8 hours it'd take to buzzing like a bee, and the hands would stand straight up and start spinning around like a flywheel and stop with a bang. Then it'd start up again and be okay for another 8 hours, and every time it went off, it kicked back like a musket. After a while, I was getting pretty sore around my watch pocket, so I tried one more time. Finally, I took it to a feller who took the whole thing apart right in front of my eyes, and I realized the thing was getting serious. The watch had cost me $200 to begin with, and so far, the repairs had come to around $3,000. So I kept a close eye on this guy. Then I recognized the watchmaker as an old steamboat engineer I used to know, and not a very good engineer either. As he was poking through all the wheels and springs, he said, "This watch makes too much steam. You need to hang a monkey wrench on the safety valve." Well, I'll have to admit I was a little perturbed with this feller, and I brained him on the spot. It was actually pretty satisfying, too, and I was happy to pay the hospital bill out of my own pocket. My Uncle Will used to say that a good horse is a good horse until it had run away once, and a good watch was a good watch until the repairers get a chance at it. Guess I should have listened to him and tossed that thing away after the first time it went wrong.